Hey guys, what's going on? I'm David Avalon here with my co-host Robert Drysdale for another edition of Breaking the Guard. It's been a while, but once again, we have these longer hiatuses.
I know, man. You know, it's funny. Someone messaged me, hey, man, when are you and Dave going to put out another episode? It's been since, December, early December, like over a month ago. I'm like, oh, shit. Someone's noticing, which is flattering. I'm glad you guys enjoy originally, I think we started once a week, and then life got crazy after COVID, really, and then it kind of slowed down.
It did, and you've been, I know I was traveling, then you're traveling.
Yeah.
I know you were just in Brazil, right? Or
Yes,
yeah.
I just got back. I was there for Christmas and New Year's.
Nice.
It was but I hadn't been there since we filmed the documentary, so it was 3 years ago. And it was a nice break, man. See some friends, kind of like, it's funny, like time goes by, but the people who were, your the heart friends, like the real friends, the same thing, man. Like nothing's changed. All this time goes by. I caught up with some people I hadn't seen in over 20 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like childhood friends, man. Like they were, it was amazing. It was such a good trip. It was kind of like, you're in work mode, and sometimes you forget about other things. Like you forget about who your friends really are because you're just in work mode, right? And it's nice to remember that you still have such a large circle of friends around me. So the trip was good for that. I feel very, very fortunate to be surrounded by amazing people my whole life, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I think I was in Florida for a couple of weeks, or like 8 days. Did some more training camps for the NRA.
Yeah.
Rifle, shotgun, chief range safety officer.
So the training, what are you doing? Are you training to train people or just getting certified?
Both. Yeah. So
Okay.
I had those certifications. I can now teach courses under them. So
Yeah.
just set up a new business here for firearms instructing. So
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You're doing that?
Yep.
Oh, shit, man.
So that's gonna be
I
fun.
don't know. I've done some training. I don't know if I told you this before. Like when I first moved to Vegas, there was this guy who was former special forces, and he was trying to put a TV show together where he was going to get professional fighters to compete in like war games against like Navy SEALs. And his job was to train us because he believed we had the athletic ability and the mindset. We just lacked what? The technique.
Yeah.
We had no skills, right? So the idea was we had it was like a 4-week crash. That was a TV show, 4 weeks to train us so we can compete against Navy SEALs. Of course, we're gonna get destroyed, but I was like, shit, man, it's a TV show. Like I've never at that point I had never held a gun in my life. So we got trained with the Glock and the AR-15, and it was like lots of training, but they never actually got on with the show, which I thought it was a cool idea.
Yeah.
But it was like me, Frank Mir, Forrest, Martin Campman was there. It's like a few of us.
Oh man,
Yeah.
very top tier.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I thought because I at the time I think I had one professional fight, but I was around those guys all the time, so
Yeah.
they got me in there. So I'm like, shit, I'll do it. So we got to fire tons of rounds in the desert. That was like my first experience with a gun. I had tons of fun, but the TV show never took off.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah,
It's fun shooting, man. Like
I have fun
Yeah.
with. You know who loves it is Marcelo. He goes
Oh,
out
yeah,
every
yeah.
weekend. He's
I went
big
with
in-
him and Ken.
Ken is really
Yeah.
into it as well.
Yeah. It's a blast. Unintended.
I have fun with it, man. Like I think that I know people that do it competitively. I think it's. I mean, I could see the skill. It's a lot harder than it seems.
Oh,
You think
for
it's
sure
not like
it
a
is.
video game where there's a lot to it, like the distance and controlling the breathing and.
Especially when, depending on if you're doing moving targets and whatnot. Like when you're doing shotgun, you do like qualifications
Yeah.
with the clay pigeons. So they call it trap shooting.
Yeah.
So you have essentially what they call a trap house in the middle, and your people are standing like in a semicircle, almost like a cone, and then you just fire the clays. And it's funny because the guy who was teaching us was saying, look, he's a state champion in Florida for sharpshooting, but he sucked at the trap house because he was always trying to aim exactly where it was. But the problem is it's not going to hit there because it's moving by the time you pull the trigger. So what's interesting with those clay shooting or trap shooting, you have to lead the target, and it's more instinctual because you have to get the shot within a second. After the second, it starts getting too far away from you, and then you're not.
But you have to be ahead of the shot because it's
Yeah.
gonna move.
Yeah, but like what's interesting about that, it's more instinctual than anything. Like you just boom and you shoot. Like the shots that actually the clays that surprise you seem to be easier to shoot if you're allowing your instincts to kick in. It's kind of like in jiu-jitsu. If you overthink something, it becomes clumsy.
Yes.
So you could see like there were some people struggling because they were thinking too much. They were trying to
Yeah.
and you don't have time. It's literally like a second, probably a little bit less of a second before you can get the good shot off, So it's just like,
It's funny. Like I've taught beginners my whole life, but I just got back to teaching beginners like maybe a year ago. I had moved away from it for a long time. And I remember like how hard it is to teach someone to pummel. Just pummeling. If you've never pummeled before, try to explain pummeling to someone. They're like, it's so confusing to them. So I remember this is the easiest method, because that's how I like to learn stuff myself. Is I don't read rule sets. I don't want to be like, if I get a board game, I'd rather just kind of get into the game and start playing and then learn the rules as I go than spend like an hour reading the rules, because you're not going to remember them anyway. So pummeling I started the same way. Like, you know what? I'm just going to have these two white belts. I'm going to tell, all right, there's a game here. What you got to try to do is get both your arms underneath their armpits, and you got to try to do the same, okay? Okay, ready, set, go. Boom, right away, bro, pummeling. So it's like the body is smarter than we give it credit for. Like if you actually get competitive, you figure it out. But the second people start overthinking, wait, right, over, left, over the arm, under the arm, it's too much information. Sometimes the best way to teach people is let the body do its thing, and you correct them as you go, right? But I'm with you, man. I think that overthinking is a big. This is why I have a theory in jiu-jitsu. You may or may not agree with me. People that are very very OCD, very anal about stuff, have a harder time like grasping new techniques, because when they're training, they want everything to be absolutely perfect, like they want it to be exactly how they learned it, right?
Yeah.
And we all know that in a fight, you kind of work with what you got. Things are rarely perfect. Very rarely you're going to have that perfect position with the perfect grip, exactly how you practiced it. You should aim for that, but sometimes you don't get that. What do? Just work with what you got, improvise it, keep going. Because I noticed that people that have that mindset, they spend a lot of time thinking about, what do I do? What do I do? What about this? But the position is not right. What do I do? And they're trying to remember moves. And while you're doing that, everything's just being slowed down. You're better off just move forward and kind of figure it out as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, thinking is the bastion of somebody who's unprepared. Right?
Yeah.
If you're prepared, you never have to think.
You just go.
You just go. Yeah. And like you said, especially when you're trying to think, and if I'm in a fight and I have to think I know I goofed. And I can remember situations where I got stuck. One of them was with Galvao. It was the last 20 seconds of the match. He shot a double. I locked down the Kimura trap, flipped him. I had his back temporarily, then he rolled over, and then I ended up in the lockdown. But he had a really good grip, and I couldn't break it. And I was fixated on just doing one thing, which is trying to rip out the Kimura. I forgot about doing the armbar or sweeping him. But I just kept thinking, how do I break his grip to open up his arm to the Kimura? And I remember it was 20 seconds just stuck on that one thing, if I could have just switched gears, and allowed myself to open my mind a little bit. But you can get jammed that way, and anytime you, like you said, you think, you're in trouble. That's what the coach is there for, right? Like your coach is the guy thinking. He's the one on the outside that has the luxury of time. Hey, he's trying to do something. He's stuck. What can I tell him?
That's the ideal relationship. But we discussed this before. But the dynamic when you're a business owner changes, because now it's a client. You don't get to yell and talk shit to your students. You lose a student. Collegiate wrestling coach just does whatever the hell he's going to do. If you're an Olympic coach, even a professional team, you have a lot more authority. So as a result, you get to tell people what to do. It's like, motherfucker, you got to trust me. If I tell you to jump, you say how high, because you're right. Because what your coach should be doing in a fight is not watching you, it's watching your opponent. You're looking, so if I want you so well trained, if I'm coaching you, I want you so well trained, so well prepared, that I don't have to tell you what to do, because we spent the last 3 months talking about it.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to do it. So I don't have to look at you. I don't have to remind you to put your fucking hands up. I want to look at your opponent. What is your opponent doing? So I want to focus on him instead. And then I can tell you, okay, this is where the openings are, right? I don't have to keep reminding you hey, more footwork, move that head, watch the timing for this shot, do this. Because if you're doing that, you're putting a lot of energy into something that you could have discussed, could have planned, could have figured that out during camp. And I think a lot of people missed it. They think camp is just about getting in shape. Camp is preparing for where the fight's going to take place. Because once I know your skills and I know mine, we know where no man's land is. Once we have that no man's land, we know exactly how to prepare.
You put it really well. The whole thing is, as a coach, and this is why people are like, oh, I don't have a game plan. Just walk in there. Well, then you're making your coach's job a nightmare.
That's insane. When I hear that, I'm like, dude, you better be really fucking good. Because if you're going to walk in there without a plan, I mean, you better be 3-4 levels above your opponents.
But not even that. Just what you mentioned, from the coach's perspective, now I have to watch you because I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
But like you said, if the athlete trusts a coach and like, okay, we developed this game plan, you got to follow it. You say, I don't have to watch him. I know what he's doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or what he should be doing.
Yeah.
You know, now, like you said, I just watched the other guy and we had an idea of what he could do, but there's always going to be some variations.
Exactly.
That's the tweaks that we make.
That's the coach's job is to find where are the variations, like what is it that we missed during camp?
Yeah.
What is he doing different? Because I'm sure he's got some tricks up his sleeve. So when this guy comes back, what is it? Is it the head movement, the footwork that's changed? Maybe he changes stances. He's throwing more side kicks. And then we have to make those changes during the round. Because the athlete should not be paying attention to that. He should just be like listening to new instruction in the corner, or throughout the fight or during in between rounds. And then he goes back to with a whole new mindset, not questioning for a second what the coach says. I say this to my students sometimes, like the more competition-oriented ones. If for a second here, some of you guys don't trust me anymore, you got to find a new coach.
Yeah.
100% for your own sake. If you don't trust me, if you don't think I know what I'm talking about, you got to go somewhere else. Because the second that trust is lost, as a competitor, if you're a practitioner, it's just different because you're not looking at, from perspective of winning. Try to have fun, but if you're a competitor or a professional fighter, I mean, you have to trust your coach with your life.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
because in the worst case scenario, you could die in there.
Yeah, you're giving him advice. That's the wrong advice. By the way, walk into that left hook, okay? He's not gonna knock you out. Don't worry about it. You're good.
Yeah, it's
the wrong advice.
Yeah, the way you say it, you can literally die in this thing. So I agree with you. Yeah, and if you don't have that, like, I've let fighters go for that reason. They start saying, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I'm like, well, it's not working anymore. Because the moment that you feel you know better than me, or in the other words, like, I don't know what I'm talking about, the trust is out, it's over. We gotta move on from that point.
I was starting to get an MMA team off the ground. Marcel is kind of picking it back up again, but I got frustrated because Vegas has a very distinct culture when it comes to training.
Very transient.
It's very transient. It's like that. Oh, it's like, for example, if you're in collegiate wrestling and you want to, train with whoever you want. Like, I kind of get it. There's nothing on the line, right? You're talking about professional fighting here, where there are millions on the line. There's a career on the line. You're gonna be training with your opponents. You're training with people who train with your opponents. You're letting anyone walk in the gym. That to me is not a team. That's strange to me. Like, I go to 5 different gyms to get my workout. I'm like, that's weird to me. I've been in fights where my coaches didn't meet until the day of the fight. They never even spoke to each other. So to me, like, that's kind of how Vegas is. It's a very strange place because there's no team. I tried to change that, but it's an uphill battle because it's so ingrained in the culture that you look at you like you're trying to be a dictator. Like, dude, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to give you structure, because if you look at the people who are true champions, if you look what's behind them, look behind Khabib, look behind Conor, look behind the guys at the very, very top of the sport. They have a network of a team that supports them. And it's not like not everyone is allowed in that circle, man. Try to go to Eagles MMA in Dagestan and see if you can just walk in and practice. Yeah. Guarantee you they're not going to let you. Just walk in and watch him train. No way. That's the way it should be. In professional sports, it's like that. The Eagles don't get to watch, the Raiders practice or whatever. You don't get that luxury, man. Like, you can't walk in if you're not from the camp. You're not welcome here. It's simple. Yeah. It's very political, but at the same time, like, that's professional.
It has to be that way. I know in jiu-jitsu circle, people are like, oh, you're so preoccupied with the politics. But no, like you said, there's people's livelihoods on the line. Yeah. And like I said, once again, people could die from this, right? So I've had this happen because our school is very strict on that. Like, if you're a casual, then do whatever you want, right? But if you're a competitor, and particularly a professional competitor, and you're going to be training at the other gym, and then they see what you're doing, and you're going to inevitably teach something to somebody or show, oh, you did this to me, what do you do? That guy then fights one of our guys, beats him with that.
Yeah.
Knocks him out with it, or, it can be bad stuff, so it makes no sense to do that, So, yeah, some people feel like they have to train with everybody so they can see all these different possible experiences. That's not true.
It's not true. It's a myth. From my experience, if you have sometimes 3 or 4 solid partners, that's more than enough, man. Plenty. Some of my best years were training It was just like me, Marcel, and like two other guys in my hometown in Brazil. Or sometimes I was traveling to São Paulo by myself. It was just me and Damien for months.
Yeah.
And we would go into war. But like I felt that those moments were the ones where like my game took the next level, because if I find myself having a problem, let's say I can't pass so-and-so's half guard, you're going to be in that half guard every day. For, if you're going to do 5-6 rounds with the same person, you're spending 40 minutes in the same position. Guess what happens? Eventually, you have to figure it out because you're going to be there all the time.
Yeah.
So your defense and your offense in that position go like this, skyrocket. Now, it's boring. I want to have train because I want to test myself against a bunch of people. It's like, you can, but that's a curiosity. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's cross-training. Like, I'll be honest with you, it has nothing to do with training. It's socializing. They want to hang out. They want to they measure, the pecking order. They want to find out who everyone sits. And just a lot of pictures for Instagram. They're not serious about training. Because if you watch the people who are serious about training, they're in the gym twice a day. They don't have to go anywhere else. They're already training twice a day,
No, I mean, I was on the same boat for most of my competitive careers. Me and my brother.
Yeah.
We started our own gym, and then every so often people, we would fly people in.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you need a new look, particularly, let's say you're fighting a southpaw, you're fighting someone who's really tall, and you don't have someone in the gym, coach, bring them in.
Yeah.
We've done that for, all of our guys. I did for myself, I know for Jason. We'll fly people in, have them spend a couple of weeks. Because all you need is just some experience getting acquainted with how it's like to fight something like that. You know what I mean? And then you pick it up. And if you need more, compete.
Yeah. No, 100%.
You need more looks, just go to Naga, go to IBJJF, compete.
But people have this thing where, like, if I'm surrounded by a bunch of champions, I'm going to be like one. And that is true if they're all on the same team and care about you. I believe that the higher the quality of the room, the better. Yeah. But if these people don't give a shit about you and they're not really helping, not really teaching you, and then they hurt you in practice because they don't have any affiliation to you, then, I mean, is that really helping? You create these toxic environments, and then you get the cliques. Yeah. You go to some gyms, you get the Hawaiians, and then you get the Brazilians, and you get the Mexicans, and you get all these cliques. And I'm going, dude, like, I don't want to be in an environment like that. I hate those kind of environments because I feel like they're not helping me grow. Like, they're in the way of my growth, because I want to be in a place where everyone likes me, everyone wants me to do well, and when I fight, everyone's on the edge of their seat, like, cheering for me. Not going to a place where half the people in there are so jealous of you. They see you as enemy. They see you as a competition. They want you to lose. Do you really want to be in a place like that? So nurturing a team environment is incredibly healthy. I think it's good for the athlete because there's a huge factor in fighting that no one likes to talk about because everyone's supposed to be a tough guy, but it's the emotional side. It's super important. Fighters we're humans, man. We're not robots. Yeah. You want to have a support network of people who love you and care about you, and that does something to your confidence. Like, I've experienced both. I've had that and not had that, and I feel different. Like, having the people, like, just your teammates, your coach, are like, man, you're going to do this. You know that when you fight, everyone's at home watching. That gives you a lot of strength, man. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you know that you're in camp and half the people in the gym want you to lose, and you know deep down that they don't give a shit about you, like they'd be happy if you lost? I mean, what kind of energy do you have when you walk through the door?
Yeah, it's a major trial to get on the mats or get in the cage, and if you're going solo or it's the last competition I did was IBJJF Worlds. I went by myself. Horrible.
It's terrible.
It went horrible.
It's terrible.
And it was simple stuff. I was totally unfocused. You know why? Yeah. Because I got on the mats, and then they're like, "Oh, you're wearing the wrong shorts. It's IBJJF. You have to have this." Yeah. I'm like, "Crap. You're going to get disqualified. Oh, you have to go get the shorts." So I had to run, get my wallet, and then buy some shorts, and then put them on and run back on the mats. And I was more concerned about getting DQ'd. And then when I got on the mat, I remember I kept getting stuck in like 50-50s, and the guy was straight ankle locking me. And I was like, the whole time, I'm like, I should be more concerned about this. Yeah. But I'm not, Yeah. I was just so distracted. And having a coach is somebody that slaps you in your face. Like, hey, they take care of that BS, management stuff.
Especially if you have someone you trust, you want to make them proud. Like, it doesn't have to be, I mean, a coach is probably that father figure, but it could be your kids too. It could be your wife. It could be, I've seen fighters like take their wives, and like, I wouldn't, because she's probably not going to give me much good advice. But for some people it works, man. Like, it's like the emotional support. This person is, and I have been in many dark places in my life, and this person was there for me, and they brought me back together. Right? Yeah. And then you want that kind of person in your corner. I'm like, you know what? Like, Frank Mir would always bring his dad. Now, his dad was just watching the camp. He never opened his mouth. He was just there. But it's his dad, man. Yeah. So he would bring him along. I'm like, that makes perfect sense to me. I think he just wants like his dad. He wants the last person he hugs before he goes into a cage is his dad, and his dad tells him, "Maybe I love you, son. You're gonna do great." And to that right there might be what's missing for a lot of people is just knowing that you have that sort of love and support from people that matter. I think a lot of fighters are too proud to admit that, and they end up surrounding themselves with people who don't have their best interests at heart, and that harms their career more than they're willing to admit.
No, for sure. I mean, just take a look at Khabib.
100%, man.
Stepped away from the game.
You say that when he goes to UFC PI, he closes that. There's a cage area there. He shuts it off. They block it, and you can't watch. So you can be around, but if the mats are just there, no one can watch. It's him getting ready for his fight with his teammates. No one around.
Oh, but that's true as well. But I was saying just with the father. Although his father was his coach.
Yeah.
Also, just losing the dad made him not want to fight.
Yes.
That was his support.
Yeah, you're right.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, like you're saying, when you're fighting, you're out to prove something.
Yeah.
That's what competition's about. It's about proving. Now, whether you're trying to prove it to yourself, which ultimately is going to be about, but there's also other people, like you said, family, friends, coaches, and if you lose those people or don't have them on your back, you have a lot less to prove now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he was trying to prove. I don't know his biography at all. I love the guy because he says something. I don't agree with everything, but I think he's an outstanding fighter. But I've seen him do stuff that to me is like very manly, man. Like you stand up to when Zubair was going to get fired. And he's like, you fire him, you're going to fire me. That's badass. I mean, wrestling a bear when you're a kid, it's pretty badass too, man. So you can see that. Yeah, he's an overall badass, man. Like I really admire the guy. But there might have been. I think you're right. Like he was doing it to like he wanted to make his dad proud. I think that theme was certainly a big part of his incentive to fight. I imagine he has kids by now, so that kind of changes you too. Like I remember after having kids, all of a sudden brain health was far more important than a UFC belt. If I had to choose healthy for the next 40 years of my life, UFC belt. I would rather be healthy.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was 20, I'm like, are you kidding me? UFC belt all day. You don't care.
Yeah.
You don't care. Like UFC belt, I could die the next day. Perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
When you have kids, you look at things differently. You can't die after you win a UFC belt. I got kids to take care of. So you're all of a sudden, most important thing in the world is no longer your career. It's taking care of other people, right? Or your kids. But yeah, that's the emotional side is something I've always been I've always been like somewhat aware of it because I used to shit my pants before my fight. Like it was very, very difficult. I was pushing myself into the cage every single time, right? And I think that I did better. It was easier when I felt I had the right people with me. It made all the difference.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And that's why I always tell people you should never go without a coach. Doesn't matter how bad you are or how good you are. Like, you should always have someone in your corner. Even if it's someone, like you said, just a mom or dad that doesn't know anything about fighting, but you got someone there to look at, you know what I mean? If things are going bad.
The thing where we're not always willing to admit this, but you're human, you're flawed, you're full of. We all have emotional issues. Like there's I don't think I've ever met a person who didn't have any. Some people have less, some have others, but we all have these things. And I noticed that like a lot of my students, because a lot of them look at me as a father figure, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I play that role. I never asked for it, but that's the second you sign up to be a coach or a gym owner, or just a teacher.
Yeah.
You can call yourself just like someone who teaches jiu-jitsu. You're immediately signed up for that position.
Yeah.
And I notice that sometimes I'll say something to one of them, and like their eyes fill up with tears. Like it means so much to them. I'm like, shit, man. And then it's easy to forget. But I remember, I think if I were like 15 or 16 and my coach said something like that to me, I think that would have been a game changer. Because I remember things that people told me when I was like 16, 17, and it like light bulb moment, like it changed because I trusted that person so much. Like that guy in my head was such a badass that whatever he said was gospel truth. It was like, I believe you. Yeah. Right? So like as a coach, we have that power. I forget I have that power sometimes. Sometimes it's like, okay, just go train and shut up, But sometimes just telling people right before a match something that they need to hear. Like sometimes it could be something simple. It's like, hey man, you're going to be fine. You train hard. You're going to kill it out there. Sometimes that for people is just, that's like that extra feel that they needed. Because walking in there confident and insecure I think it's as important as the technique itself, man. I've seen tons of people very well prepared, but deep down, technically and physically, right? But deep down, emotionally, they were I just like they're not there.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
not invested.
not having the emotional fortitude to withstand competition. You can't be a competitor without it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like having a machine with no soul, or like a person with no soul.
Yeah.
They have everything on paper, but there's something quantifiable that's missing.
I would argue that perhaps is even more important than everything else. I'll tell you why. I've seen mediocre people with not that skilled, but they had so much fire and so much confidence, and they went out there and that made up for everything else, man.
Oh yeah.
Because when you have that heart and you're like emotionally put together and you got in your head you're gonna win, you got a good network behind you. When it comes down to it and you're really tired, you push that extra round like no problem. You go that extra minute. Whereas if you walk in there half defeated, the second things get hard, you go, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
You know, so it's it's a fascinating thing. It's funny because me and Dave were talking about right before we started, like, what are we going to talk about? And we're like, there's not a lot going on in the fight world, is there? And they're like, no fight. And we spent like a good 5 minutes talking about figuring out what we're going to talk about. And we agreed that we're going to talk about strength and conditioning for fighting. We always go on tangents. End up talking about not completely unrelated, but
it's an important topic.
Yeah, it is because you don't see. I mean, think about how many instructionals are out there for technique.
Yeah.
And now try to make not an instructional or write a book about the emotional aspect of fighting, and people will laugh at you. Like, what? No one's going to read it.
Oh, we have one. It's the one my brother actually made. It's called Black Belt Psychology.
Okay.
And
so read it. Don't, guys. I'm serious because this is a huge part of the equation. And like most people they like technique,
Yeah, and it's pretty much every fighter on our team has to read the book. Yeah. They go through it.
What's it called again?
Black Belt Psychology.
Is it on Amazon?
No, we have it on our website.
Okay.
You go FFA Coach.
Trying to plug you here, bro. Give the website, Dave.
Yeah. You go to my blog, David Avalon. You'll see it there.
Okay.
But it goes over the fight process that me and my brother have used for all of our fights and all of our competitors, and it talked about these things. But what we were talking about specifically was the will to live, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
The will to win, and that is more important than everything else, as you said, because you could be outmatched in both technique and strength, but if you are not going to lay down for anybody, then that guy has to be able to put you away. And at a certain point, people have what they call finisher's anxiety, right? When you get close to finishing somebody and then like they don't go down, you start like, what the hell's going on?
That breaks you.
That can
when
break
they
people.
realize that they're not breaking.
Yeah, like you're not breaking, and I just put everything I had into that.
Yeah.
Am I in trouble now? You know what I mean, like that happens to people all the time.
Oh yeah.
Especially if they're doing something very tough, like a triangle choke, and they squeeze and they put everything into it, and then the guy gets out and laughs at them and punches you in the face.
Yeah.
You're like, oh crap, I just pissed him off. I didn't even make this guy hurt.
But this is why body language is so important.
Yeah.
Because if you give that away, if I see you frustrated, I know I won.
Yeah.
And you can tell when someone's frustrated, man. It's hard to hide it because body language is something. It's your mind speaking through your arms for your facial expressions. So it's like a skill to keep that poker face on no matter what. How you feel, how tired you are, how frustrated you may be. Can't show it because it does something your opponent's, will. Like it does something to his confidence. I've felt it. Like you ever have to side someone in side control?
Yeah.
And then you can just go, as soon as you pass, you go, just go like that. You're like, yes, gotcha.
Yeah, it's like settling the position, right?
Yeah.
The guy's freaking out. That's why I always tell people, when you pass a guard, just hold it. Because once they stop moving around, they've allowed the position to settle.
Yeah.
They have conceded.
Yeah.
And one of the things is, like when we first grapple each other, and I'm on top of you, you're like, this guy can't pass my guard.
Yeah.
And you have a concept in your mind that is written in stone, can't pass guard. And if I'm able to sit past your guard, now I've broken that. And now that shakes your confidence.
Yes.
Now you're like, what else am I wrong about now?
Yes.
I get the mount. It's like, well, I guess I was wrong about that too. And it's just like a domino. I found like if I get past a guy's guard once, I get past it twice, 3, 4, 5 times. I've already shattered that barrier.
Yeah.
So that's part of like that will. Like I've grappled with some guys that they just will not let you pass a guard no matter what. Like it's
Called honor.
Yeah, it's like an honor thing. Like
Yeah.
it's like slapping their mother if you
Yeah.
were able to pass their guard,
Yeah.
and they fight it
Yeah.
tooth and nail. And you need to be about that for everything.
Uh-huh.
So I remember in wrestling, you'd have guys, like you said, you would break them. Like my brother and I, we trained. We were not very technical. We were not really strong at the time. You know, we just had a lot of stamina and a lot of will to win. So it was always about breaking people. So we're just trying to cardio people out
Yeah.
and just push a really hard pace. And like you said, like the moment you hear that guy and breathing hard and you're relaxed, you're like, okay, the end's coming now.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna start breaking you. But you'll run into guys that they don't break either.
You know,
And then it's like, okay, now it's about hurting people now, right? Now we're just gonna see who's tougher than the other one.
there was I noticed that like people who have that, there's like an exterior, a shell of confidence, right? Because it's like the bully who's never been beat up.
Yeah.
And then they come to jiu-jitsu and they get beat up. Man, that guy's either going to rise above or he's never going to come back. And they normally don't come back because it's too, like, what? I'm not invincible. I'm not that strong. Confidence can be very fragile too, man. If you're used to winning, this is why losing is so important. Everyone's like, you don't want to be a loser. I think losing is super important. It's the two sides of the same coin. That's how I refer to it now. Like you need both because losing makes you tough. The problem is when you lose and quit.
Yeah.
I made this argument the other day on that. I did a TEDx the other day. I don't know if you
Yeah.
And like, there's some overlapping with what we're talking about, but it's not like we're talking about like anxiety and depression. I don't think that losing causes depression. I'm a critic of the culture of the participation medal, giving someone a medal for losing, because the child is going to be sad and cry. I'm like, frustrated, anxiety, crying, upset. Yeah, that's life. It's called life. You're going to deal with it sooner or later. You got to give it to children in small doses.
Yeah.
So when they reach adulthood, they're not sheltered, and then they get a big dose of it and they can't handle it, and that's what leads to depression.
Yes.
Losing is not going to cause that. Losing is going to make you tough, right? And you have to. It's almost like your immune system. You train your immune system with some germs. Now, you don't overwhelm a newborn.
Yeah.
You don't let it play in the garbage, right? But if it puts something in its mouth, it's because it's necessary. It's training its immune system, right? These things are important. You got to balance it out. I think this whole thing people have about like not losing, they're too scared of failing. Like it's so detrimental to them.
Yeah.
Like you got to throw yourself out there. So what? And someone who's overconfident, perhaps because they were sheltered their whole life, right? They're like, I'm good. I never lose. I'm awesome. I got every tournament I went, I got a medal, right? So they have that. And then when they're confronted with a real challenge, they break.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because my brother and I had opposite experiences when we started competing. I think we talked about it before, but my brother, he had lost.
We've talked about everything on this podcast before. Me and Dave have solved the world's problems many times over.
Well, we'll recap. My brother lost his first 11 wrestling matches in a row, and I won my first 11 in a row. But he started off as varsity, I started off as JV. So obviously the level of competition was very different. But it made him very tough.
Yeah.
Because he had to deal with so much loss very early.
Yeah.
And to a certain point, he looked like he got out there, and the goal was just to make that guy hurt.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, I might lose, but the guy's gonna remember me. And he had this big old head, so he'd like headbutt people, and people were leaving with broken noses and bloody mouth and stuff like that. So that became a part of his thing, you know. And that's just one way I see it. Like, if even I know I'm gonna lose against somebody, that's my attitude. Like, you're gonna remember this one. You're not gonna enjoy it. You'll win, but it's gonna suck for you.
There's something Spartan about it, like that theme, the 300 theme, right? Like, that's the lesson. Like that story is not as. I mean, it's a movie, obviously, it's very inaccurate, but like, there's something about the theme of, you know, putting that last fight before you go. Oh shit! I just watched something. A friend of mine recommended The Gray.
The Gray, okay.
Have you seen it?
I have not.
It's great. I thought, like, all right, I think I was gonna like it, dude. Powerful. If you haven't seen it, watch. It's called The Gray with Liam Neeson.
Okay.
And there's a theme in there. There's something that one of the characters mentions. It's called the Swan Song. So it's an ancient. I had to Google. I didn't know this. There's an ancient part of Greek mythology where a swan, right before it died, it sung its most beautiful song. It knew it was gonna die, so it sung the most beautiful song it ever sung its whole life, and then it kaput. Right, done. But the movie, that's the theme of the movie.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna go down, May it be with 300 Thermopylae battle. You're
Yeah.
gonna go out put up that most beautiful fight you've ever put up. There's a beautiful poem in that film. What's it? Once more into the fray, till the best fight we have ever fought. Live and die another day. Live and die another day, or something like that. Can't remember the quote the poem verbatim, but that was the theme. But there's something about that. Like if even if you're gonna lose, bring it. I think that right there is, in some circumstances, might be more noble. There might be more merit there than the person who won. Because sometimes you're completely outnumbered. 300, Thermopylae battle, case in point. There's no chance you're going to win, but fuck, what a fight that was.
Yeah.
Right? So what is that? Who's the real winner?
Yeah.
There's a lot of merit. Even in losing, there can be a lot of merit, so long as it's challenging. It's especially if there's something unequal about it. Like if you're outmatched, right? If you're going against someone who's technically superior. So for example, you're going against a guy in the gym who's like 4 levels above you, but you still put up a hell of a fight. And I see this every now and then. I'll be rolling with the blue belt, purple belt, and Dave, they're hunting for my neck.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like there's a part of me that goes, "You little disrespectful little shit." But that's a smaller part. The bigger part of me goes, admires him. It's like, this guy wants a piece of me, man. And I get where he's coming from. It's not out of ego. He's not trying to be arrogant. It's just that he wants, he wants to. He doesn't want to be easy prey.
Yeah. And my brother he actually writes this in the book. He calls this the crystal ball. So he says he'll ask his athletes, let's say I have a crystal ball and I'm able to read the future.
Yeah. And
you're about to compete tomorrow. And I look in this crystal ball, I go, Robert, I have bad news for you. You're losing your first match.
Yeah.
Right? Now his question, are you still going to compete?
Yes. You have to. Yeah, the correct answer is you should.
Yes.
I don't know. The real answer may be like, fuck this. I'm going to save my money.
Exactly. Nowadays, it's like $300. Like, oh man, I don't know. That's a car payment. But so that's the point, right? Like, so if you're still going to fight, you're not fighting to win anymore, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting because
for fight's sake.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. We're going there to prove something, and proving. Yeah. A lot of us think, or from the outside, it's about winning. No. You want to see what you're made of, right? And if I was going to lose, I told I was going to lose. I want to know how I lost, right? Like, how is that even possible?
Yes, right? Yes.
In my mind, I'm undefeatable. I want to see this guy who could actually beat me, and how he's going to do it. Because, like you said, that's the only way I'm going to get better.
Yes.
If I never compete, then I never knew the weakness that I have.
Yeah. That's a very powerful theme, man. But the thing is, we're obsessed with this theme that we call success, right? Success, winning, and then what do you even mean by success? Because I want the success, but I want the iron price. Yeah. I had this conversation the other day, and I was like, I wasn't born rich, but I'm kind of happy that I wasn't, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not rich, but I make more than I need. I live a good life. I will, I plan on leaving something for my children. But I'm proud of that I had to build my way up. And most people are like, no, I wish I were born rich. I wish I was handed to me. I don't think there's no merit there. Where do you grow? How do you learn these important lessons when you have everything handed to you? If you're a phenomenal athlete, in some ways it's to your detriment because, when you're that talented, things come easier for you. I really believe that. I think I take more the merit of the grind as that's the true victory. I value that more than the medal itself. I didn't think that way 20 years ago, but I look at it this way now. There are more important things that you're going to learn along the way that are very significant for your personal growth.
Yeah, and like you said, there's, how would you say, I'm not sure, the moral value of somebody who is a millionaire that was born to billionaire parents versus somebody who was in the favela and then he came out of it. Right? He's obviously had to learn more and be able to push himself more. So if you start higher, then the bar technically for you should be even higher. If you were born a millionaire, now the goal is to be a billionaire now, right? You got to make bigger moves. Otherwise, you wasted. Because the whole thing is whatever you hand down to your children, ideally they're able to multiply it. Right? They should be better than you. They should be able to move beyond you. And if you didn't prepare them for that, then you failed them.
You failed as a parent.
Yeah.
Nietzsche really admired Napoleon, because he saw him as a truly great man. And he's not talking about what he did. And I see what he's saying. I agree with him. I don't have to admire what you actually did, but the ambition, man, holy shit. Yeah. And the merit. He went from foot soldier to emperor of Europe. Now let that sink in. Talk about merit. How do you go from foot soldier to emperor of Europe in a lifetime?
Yeah.
Most people, think about it. It's truly impressive. I was just thinking about this, like Carlos Gracie. Like I don't admire his. I don't, between me and you, I don't think he was a good person. I think he's the beginning of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's no doubt. It's not Maeda. It's Carlos Gracie. There's no way around it. Carlos, beginning year 1 or year 0, Carlos Gracie. Right, split from judo. Starts with him. I don't admire his life. Get into his personal life. It gets uglier and uglier. But man, the ambition, pretty bold when you think about it. Pretty bold, like you start admiring these things, and I think that this crafting is ultimately, a bigger prize than, the medal, the win, or the money, because when you think about it, and this again it's overlapping with my talk, but it's still fresh in my mind. You don't take the medal when you're going to win a medal. How long does that last? That high, 2-3 days. You feel like you're Superman, and then what?
It's gone. Yeah, it's fleeting.
It's gone. But when you grow and you transform yourself and you learn a hard lesson, right, and you become better because of that, that's forever, right? So what's the real win? What's the real treasure, right? There's I think it was in that Orson Welles film, Mr. Arkadin. There's an opening quote, and it goes like this: "Poet meets a king. The king invites a poet to his court. And the king asks him this: out of all treasures I have, you choose anything. Pick anything I have. It's yours." And the poet goes, "Give me anything except your secret." Accept the secrets of success is what he's like. So I want the grind. Like you can give, I don't even care about what you're going to give me. What I really want is the lesson of the journey, right? I think that's what the poet meant by that. Like that's what I value the most. I think a lot of people miss out on that. They're focused on what's right now, the house, the money, the fame, the medal. It's like, dude, there's a lot of merit that goes around to getting that you're missing out on.
Yeah, they're just looking at the symbol.
Yeah.
Like I have most of my medals got thrown away by accident apparently, or someone stole them. I had my brother. We had them all at the gym, and this just shows you how little we cared about our medals. They must have been like 100 or something medals. Yeah. They were all in the garbage bag. Yeah. And I think he was just putting them because he was moving around. And I think somebody threw them out because there's some in the garbage. Yeah. And there weren't all the medals. I have like 2 medals now. Like my ADCC bronze, and then I have one Grappler's Quest thing. And they're in a box somewhere out of nowhere, right? But people are like, oh, if it was a gold medal, or like I would hang it, and you're going to look at it every day. No, you're not. You're going to... No. It's going to be on the wall. And
more time goes by, the less they mean. I was just in Brazil now, and I all of a sudden I remembered, like, where are my medals? I don't know. And there's a chat group with my old students. I'm like, Rob, you've never cared about this for 15 years. What is this now that you care? I'm like, I want to find my medals. And it's with so-and-so. Basically, 2 weeks later of finger pointing, because no one knew where the medals were, they finally found... It was at someone's ex-girlfriend's house or something like that. There's a box full of my medals there. And I got them. There's a ton of medals missing. Like maybe half of them are there, but whatever. Yeah. So I was going to bring them back to the U.S. I'm like, that's going to take a lot of stuff in my suitcase. Like, you know what? There's a lot of room. No, I just left it at my best friend's house in Brazil, and it's there. But it was nice to see them. But like, it brought back memories. But it was the memory that I valued. Yeah. When I saw the medal, I was like, oh, I remember this tournament. I forgot about it. I fought so-and-so this day. This happened on the trip, and on the way back, we did this, and that. And that was what I was valuing the most.
Yeah, exactly. It's a symbol. It's a representation of the memory. Yeah. But if I give that to you, it means nothing. Yeah. It's just a shiny token. Yeah. You know what I mean? That you didn't have a story associated with it.
It's like when someone gets a black belt too easy. Same thing. Like, why do you want something you're not going to value, bro? You want it to be hard. Like that's what you're gonna take with you. It's not. I can tie a belt around your waist right now. It's gonna make you feel happy for a second, but not proud.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we have the gauntlets and there's these trials. Like there's a system in play when you do these hierarchies and whatnot. And like you said, nobody just gets a belt. There's a test, or there's a gauntlet. There's a trial, or something. It's for a reason. Yeah. It's because you're not. If I just go, oh, you know what? You're a blue belt now. Here you go. You're like, oh, really? Like, I didn't have to do anything. But if I told you to get the blue belt, okay, after you've trained for like 4 years, now we're gonna put you to the test, and you're gonna do all this rolling, and then you're gonna go, oh, it's gonna be really tough, and then you get it. Like you said, now there was a grind for it, and that makes it a lot more redeeming. And then you have like a bondship, and like a brotherhood now, because everybody else who got that blue belt also went through that thing, and and then you all share your stories. Oh, when I went to the gauntlet, this freaking guy smashed me or whatever, But that's the purpose behind it, right? There has to be a struggle, If there wasn't a struggle behind it, then, like you said, it has less value. It's just like,
There's I was just reading about this recently. Like, there's this it was a concept in ancient Greece called agon, which translates as contest or struggle. It was meant to be a contest amongst equals. So we're equally matched. We go to war, and that is good. They saw that as goodness. Right? Because conflict was not something that's frowned upon. Today we go, no conflict, everyone's a winner, no hierarchies, everything is flat, right? It's like we're striving for mediocrity. They didn't see it that way. The Greeks looked at something. Greatness is important. There's beauty, and there's an aesthetic. It's aesthetic to win, to rise above, and you need an equal for that. You need an enemy. You need an opponent. Right, so they saw that right there as a value. There was value in conflict because conflict made you better, which is exactly what our experience in the gym tells us. Right, you have someone who's your rival in the gym, not necessarily, social or emotional rival, but like rival as like this is the best guy in the gym, and you're trying to beat him every day. That's good. That right there is good because that's what's going to make both of you guys better. I feel like martial arts, especially I think wrestling, I think I said this before, I think wrestling more than other martial arts has kept that alive in a world where that sort of mindset is dying. Like I think that right there is not, people don't see competition and hierarchies as good things anymore. I don't think they're good. We have to value, but as long as again, competition amongst equals, so it doesn't really translate well into all spheres. But when it comes to physical, the gym is one of those few environments where you can actually witness this firsthand, and you see people grow with it. They become stronger. They become better people. I just love it, man. Like I've seen what it's done for people that were socially awkward, shy, socially retarded. And me too. Okay, since we're at it, I check those too, man. I think it's funny because martial arts draws that. It draws a lot of that type because I think they see it as like this is the vehicle for me to improve. This is how I'm going to stop being this awkward teenager. I'm going to be something better. Martial arts does that. Again, I think wrestling does it more than jiu-jitsu, and you guys can stop following me, get angry at me, talk shit, you're a traitor. It's true because they're tougher. Like jiu-jitsu's, it's been infected, it's been poisoned by economics. Like you have to lower the level because you'll lose half your students if you don't. And at the end of the day, you got bills to pay, right? And wrestling coach doesn't give a shit. You know why? The state pays him. He don't give a fuck. You don't like me? Okay, off the team. Like they don't give a shit. They can train you hardcore all the time, and I think it breeds some of the toughest people I've met in fighting. The toughest people I've met came from wrestling. Like every single one of them is strong-minded.
Yeah, it's one of the things that if you're not familiar with the sport. At least when I was in high school, there was no cuts. Yeah. They cut you by making you quit. I remember when
wow, I like that.
The first day when we got there, there was like 60 people on the mats. And like people were like, butt to butt, just trying to get around, jogging around the mat to warm up. After a couple of weeks, it was like 15 people. And it's just because everybody saw how tough the training was. Like, no, that's not for me. I'm out.
Selection.
At the end of the season, in my senior year, there was like 4 people.
Yeah.
Our coach maybe trained us too hard. He killed everybody else out of it. But it's what makes you tough, right? So like when there's no selection criteria as far as like, cutting people, then you just make it as physically difficult as possible. So those are the minds of the people that you get from wrestling. It's like grinding. And even then, if you want the varsity spot, it's a wrestle off. You have to fight for that spot. And you could challenge. I forget the frequency they would do the wrestle offs, but I remember I had to do one, and my brother had to do one, and So there is definitely conflict, and you have that guy like. When I know the guy I'm going to wrestle off with, I'm like, I'm sizing him up now. Like this is the guy I got to beat. But at the end of the day, when we were coming back when you're saying what's success or what's winning. I think it's relative, right?
Yeah.
We think of winning what we define as, oh, okay, who scores the most points, who gets to win. But really, to me, what winning should be is getting better, right? And you can get better and lose, right? So
You normally improve more when you lose.
Yeah.
That's the truth of the matter.
because you got more to learn.
Yes.
Like if I win by just throwing, one combination and knocking you out,
You didn't learn anything.
I didn't learn anything. Maybe I learned, hey, I hit good.
I got a good left hook.
I got a good hook, and my coach's plan was great.
Yeah,
All right, but
yeah.
it's just like a affirmation.
Yes, after yes.
Right.
It feels great.
It feels great, yeah, because that means you did everything right? You prepared, coach was good, you did everything right, great job. But you don't build skill from it, right? You just affirm that what you did was right. As a loser, though, you're like, man, I need to work on my head movement. I need to, get better footwork. I need to be able to evade this. So there's skills to improve upon. Now that's why I think it's harder as a champion, to continue winning, because if you're dominantly destroying people, you're not getting much feedback, as far as like what things you can do better. Whereas if you're the people challenging, you're getting to see everybody else's mistakes and loopholes, and be, well, okay, this is the vulnerability they didn't expose that I can come in there and do it.
It's just like, I think our outlook on it is what's incorrect. We look at, and when you say this, losing is good, people think that, it's okay if you're a loser. Like, it's not what I'm saying. It's difficult to explain to people. Like, there's value in struggle. It is struggle that is the win. As long as there's struggle, there's growth, and there's winning and growing. When you only win, it's probably because you're not in a contest of equals to begin with. Because if you're in an environment where there's a contest of equals,
50-50.
chances are you're going to lose. Now, you get the exceptional. Every once in a blue moon, you get a Cael Sanderson or a Satiev. You're going to get a Michael Phelps. That happens once in a blue moon. You get someone who's exceptional, right? That happens. But for the most part, if you're throwing yourself out there, you're going to win. You're going to lose. And the struggle itself is the win.
Yeah. And being able to overcome the disappointments and stuff like that, that's what takes the emotional intelligence.
And you should be disappointed. That's the thing. People think, you should not be disappointed. Like, no, you should, but you should use that.
Yeah.
That's fuel. Like, it's not bad as long as you channel it. Just don't use it to quit. Use it to grow stronger,
The emotions are there for a reason, right? And I think someone broke it down once. Emotion is energy in motion, right? So it's like you're supposed to direct it to a certain place. You're not supposed to sit in it and dwell in it. If you sit on anger for long, it's going to ruin you. It's like sitting in depression or whatnot. The idea is that you're angry. Okay, now how can we channel that anger and move it into a way that will motivate us to be better? Right? Like if you take control of what you feel and direct it, it becomes that motivating force. That's why some people work well with negative reinforcement. It's not for everybody. I don't personally like it, but some people do because they know how to channel it that way. Or when they hear the crowd talking crowd, like, that's when they get riled up. They don't do as good when the crowd's for them. They want to be the underdog. But it's all about learning how to channel these emotions. But people like saying, you should never be sad, you should never be happy, you should never be like Buddhist type thing. And to me, it's like, well, then you're not going to do anything. Yeah. you're already content, which I guess great, you hit enlightenment, but now your life's over. It's boring.
Know how Nietzsche referred to Buddhism? He called it a sanitized philosophy. Because it's so clean and void of anything that's human. There's no dirt on it. It's just like so, happy and perfect. It's like, no, give me some noise, man. And you understand what he's meaning. He's like, you need the conflict. Like that's who we are. Like, and you shouldn't avoid that. Like you shouldn't be like, what? I mean, imagine if you were enlightened and completely at peace with everything. Like everything made you happy. I don't know. Like, I don't know if I mean...
You wouldn't do anything.
Exactly. You'd be like living under a bridge and you'd be like starving and you'd be happy because you're meditating and you're somewhere else in your head. I don't know. I'm not enlightened. But like, I mean, from a distance, I'm not sure I want to be like, where's that? How do you win jiu-jitsu tournaments when you have that mindset? Like, it's okay. No matter what happens, everything's okay. There has to be some kind of internal struggle.
And that struggle comes from desiring things.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You want something, and there's something in your way. That's the struggle, getting to that to get there. But if you have no desires, then you don't have any struggles because you already got everything you needed, which is nothing.
Yeah.
So in my mind, if you're wrong, maybe we could be wrong. But from my understanding, if everybody's Buddhist, then
we'll be in
one
the Stone
generation
Age.
and we're done.
We would be in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
It's because at some point, some ape-looking creature saw like, what's over that hill over there? I want to find out what's on top of that hill. And then he finds a stick and a rock, and like, wonder if I can put these two together and do something new. Like I think that there's ambition plays a huge role in human life. I think we need to balance it out. Like at some point, it can be reckless too. Like, I think there's something as harmful ambition, and then you got to look around you too. If you're one of those guys, you're gonna do things just for yourself and realize you're a wrecking ball of the world and everything around you. That's not healthy. This is why, to me, the gym is such an important place to be. It's such, because there you can be ambitious. You can be violent and aggressive, not in a way that's not hurting people, but like I could try to take you down and be violent about it. I'm going to try to pick you up and slam you, and you're going to be pissed off at me, but deep down you're like, all right, motherfucker, I'm going to get you back now. And then it is an outlet for that which is already in us anyway.
Yeah.
You're an angry gorilla in there. If you don't find an outlet for that, it often goes in a way that is actually very harmful to people around you, and it's not healthy to yourself. It's not healthy to others. Like I don't believe in violence out there. Like for the most part, I don't like wars. I don't think we should be able to talk these things out. But the gym is the place to express that. Like if there ever were a place that were created to express that aggression, especially men have it more than women. We're naturally aggressive. High testosterone levels kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years. You may like it, may not like it, but it's there. The gym is the place to express that.
It's just like acknowledging your history and where you came from, and pretending that there isn't differences between men and women, or just how we're supposed to be. Like you said, violence is part of life.
Yeah.
And when they try to, I know some people go, for example, vegan for dietary reasons. Yeah. And I believe
there's an argument there.
There's an argument there to be made that there's some people that can't eat meat, or they don't. So okay, but for the most part, there's no ethical reasoning to me as far as not eating animal flesh. Like that's like telling a dog to go vegan. I think there was a celebrity that said they were going to put their dog. They went vegan and they put their dog on vegan. Like, that's animal cruelty. The dog's not going to be eating tofu. Like, are you kidding me?
You're right. Yeah, it is. It probably hates it. Yeah. I mean, it won't starve. It will eat tofu if there's nothing else to eat, but it's not going to be happy.
Yeah. It's like, would you get like a tiger and start feeding them like lettuce all day? Like, no, it would be silly. That's the same thing.
It's just we're in denial about our animal side.
Right. And I get I think some people are well-meaning that, they see animals and they're very empathetic to them, and they see them now like as extensions of humans, and like, oh, it's cruel to kill them. But animals kill each other too. But we're going to tell all the animals? Yeah. No, you wouldn't do that to an animal. Guess what? You're an animal. You're just an animal that with more power.
I'm not vegan. I probably never will be. I can empathize with their position, not for health reasons, because I don't think it's healthy. I disagree. Yeah. But like the way animals are treated, I'm not against killing animals. They're pretty brutally treated. Like I could see an argument there. Like, okay, can we do something to be more humane about killing?
That I agree with, because I don't want to eat that either.
Yeah. Like I think hunting is more manlier too. Like there's something.
But there's also the whole struggle and the story of, I went to Smith's and brought a steak and I cooked it for my family, versus I went out to freaking Montana and I stalked this elk for like 2 weeks before I got it, and then I had to drag it in and butcher it. Yeah. That's a story. Like when you serve that food,
there's no value. Yeah, it's just food.
You can feel a piece of your soul in there. Like, and that it means so much more than I just went to the butcher shop and grabbed.
I have never hunted, but I would like to hunt one day and just like eat my own. Actually, I killed a rabbit with a 22 once. I'm not sure that counts.
Did you eat it?
I ate it though. Okay, I mean, I didn't know how to skin. My friend had to do it. I had no idea how to skin a rabbit, but like it was all right. Tastes like chicken, sort of thing. Yeah, it was all right. It was not bad. It was fun. It was fun. I mean, but like I could see some, and I don't believe in cruelty for Purposeful cruelty. If you're cruel to a child to teach it a lesson, when I mean cruel, I mean like some kind of punishment, right? To teach them a lesson, I think there's value. But cruelty for cruelty's sake, no. But I'm not against. I think eating meat is part of our history. It's at the end of the day, I think that there's too much ideology and not enough truth in people's way of looking at the world.
Yeah, like
we're overwhelmed with ideology. Like, that's way too much, man. Like the whole, I know you were going with that. Like they're dudes that are becoming women, and then they're going on to play in women's leagues.
Oh, we talked about it.
It was like, what the hell is going on here, people? I think Joe Rogan got in trouble for saying that.
He did.
We're not as big as Joe Rogan, so we should be okay. But what the fuck? But people believe that. They go, well, if I think I am, then I am, and okay, I'm gonna wait. What?
Yeah, it doesn't quite.
And I'm like, okay, you want to, you could be whatever you want. If you want to dress up as, you want to chop your wiener off, like it's on you, man. Like, okay, I want to put legally, I want to be a woman. I should not against it. I'm like, okay, but you're barred from professional sports.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
You can't make other people play in your games, right? Like, and we all have games, I mean, me and you beat each other up, and that's a silly game.
Yeah.
If you think about it, but that's our thing. But it would be like, hey, everybody has to come with us and train. Like, no, it's I don't have to play along in what you're doing. And when you're asking people, especially in sports, where now we're talking about, again, people's lives are at stake now, right? The whole Fallon Fox thing was ridiculous.
Dude,
it was
a
38-year-old guy that switched. It's not like there's arguments. I don't agree with them, but there are arguments like, if you get them before puberty and then the bone density. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I don't know.
We're getting into.
I'm not buying it, but
I don't buy it, but whatever. There's an argument to be made. This dude was like 37 or 38 when he made the transition. There's nothing you can do to take away that advantage he already had.
Did I tell you that she gave us a ride from the casino to the airport once?
Fallon Fox?
Yes.
Oh, no. Wow.
I was cornering James McSweeney, and then I think we missed our ride to the airport. I was like, I'll drive you guys. So she drove us to the airport. Yeah, I didn't know. I found out later, like, he had to tell me, like, who that is? I'm like, no clue. But, yeah, it's a huge advantage. Because it's not just like, but I think the argument goes, if their testosterone levels are low, then they're on par with women. Like, you dummies. I'm no physiologist and no endocrinologist, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot more going on in the human body than just testosterone. Testosterone is an element in the equation. You can even make an argument it's the most important one. Okay, I wouldn't know. Muscle fiber density,
lung capacity,
bone density, the size of your heart, like red blood cells,
the frame, your bone frame, and all that. Yeah.
There's so much going on, guys. There's so much more going on. Yeah. I don't know where it's gonna end, but shit's gone crazy for sure.
Yeah, and then the whole thing is we're trying to make a level playing field, but then you're allowing people to switch around.
And it's the same people making lives. We were talking about equality, and then you pull that shit off. I don't know. I don't even know how to come back from that. Like, how do you even?
Yeah.
The other day, a friend of mine sent me an article. Some of this is just insane. I can't remember if it was a student that got kicked out of the classroom or if it was a professor that got fired. I can send you the article. I didn't chase up the source, but apparently got kicked out of the classroom for saying that men can't get pregnant. I'm not making this up, Dave. Like,
I know that it's a true thing.
No, it's like
I had to get a COVID test. By the way, it came out good, so don't worry.
No, but like,
I was negative. Yeah. But on the test, it asks you, what gender were you born in? Are you pregnant? What gender do you identify as? I remember my mom, because she had to do one also, she was laughing like, well, if I answered male, I couldn't possibly be pregnant, could I? But I don't know. Maybe you could.
I want to do it just to fuck with people one day, like male and pregnant, just to see if anyone's going to notice. Like, how do you, I don't know. Like, it's just, this is something I always wonder, like, what are the absurdities of the present that future historians will, like, just look back and go, what were you guys thinking? Because we can look back at things like slavery and go, like, how on earth do you justify something like that? Like, to us, it sounds so absurd. Like, going back, what, you're going to kidnap someone, put them in chains, and make them work for you for free for their whole lives, and when their children are born, they got to do the same? It's a pretty insane concept when you think about it, right?
Horrific.
Yeah, it's horrific, but it's how do you justify that? I wonder if, like, 200 years from now, people are going to look back and they're going to go, wait, what? You guys thought that That's, you know, like these guys could play sports with women and get away with it, and men, like someone got kicked out of a classroom for saying that men can't get pregnant. Like, this is the absurdity of our time, and it flies as, you know, political correctness. It flies as, you know, it's, I wish it were, and the world's going to be better this way if it is, so I want it to be, so therefore we have to make it that way.
It's just weird because on one hand we're supposed to be believing science, but then on the other hand we're denying science.
Fiercely anti-scientific, yeah.
And we're denying science in the name of not offending people.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, we're and again, why we're afraid to offend people?
Because people are scared of the truth. The truth is hurtful.
Are we? And we're what? They can't handle the truth of their situation. I don't know. It is making, like you say, it's making very fragile people.
Yeah.
People that are living in bubbles, that they're worried that you're gonna pop a bubble. So now that's why I feel it kind of normalizes everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's a kind of a scary trend. You know, like how far do you go with like these weird things that are going on? I don't know. It's crazy.
It is, and the fact that, you know, what's the name of that study? I think it's from the 70s, 80s, that it predicted that technology was going to build on itself, and it was like in a snowball. So it was like a curve, right? It went like that. Yeah. We're at the top of that curve, and we have no idea how high the ceiling is. But I think we're reaching a breaking point at least culturally.
Well, especially if you think technology. I read an article where they had, I don't know if you heard of quantum processing.
The new computers are not binary anymore. They're talking about computers that can...
Yeah, so like essentially binary computers are ones
one
that
and
we're used
zero.
to, one and zero. Yeah. Quantum has 3 states, or I think maybe 4 if I'm not mistaken. And that opens up so much possibilities as far as processing, but they were saying there was a math problem on a conventional binary computer would take, it's like something like 1 million years. It was some ridiculous amount of time, and it takes minutes in a quantum processor. It's like the computational power of how much this thing can process is ridiculous. You know, so now when we talk about AI on a quantum thing, it's going to be like, there's going to be no way we could compete with that. You know, I mean, this is going well beyond anything we can fathom.
There's
people have a hard time. I have a hard time understanding quantum physics to begin with.
I can't. I try to understand. Wait, that makes no sense. We just lack the intelligence for it. I think it's beyond the scope of our intelligence.
Engineer.
I recently, based on someone recommended me a book. It was called by. It's a Polish name. His last name is Bauman. He's a Polish anthropologist. I believe he's a professor in England. Might have died recently. I can't remember. He's really old. But it's called Liquid Times. He talks about modernity, like how fast the world's changing. Liquid times, because you can't really put your hands on anything. Like, it's just liquid. When you in the 50s, 60s, like, you knew you work a 9 to 5. You buy a house, you buy a car, you raise some kids, like 2.5 kids or whatever it is, like, you know, picketed fence, and you save money your whole life, you send your kids to college, and that was a good life. That was a stable life. Like, if you played by the rules and you followed those rules, it was concrete, right? 2021, what's concrete? Yeah. Well, okay, give me a currency that's stable, Dave. Go. Give me a currency that's stable. You think the dollar is a current stable for the next 50 years? Would you believe? I don't believe that.
No, not for a second.
What is it, Bitcoin? Or is it Chinese? The China's coming out with a new currency. You see that?
Did you hold on to your Bitcoin?
Huh?
Did you hold on to your Bitcoin?
Most of it. Every time I try to play Bitcoin, I get screwed. I don't touch that thing anymore.
I was gonna say, otherwise you're good.
Everyone got rich from it but me. Okay. But like, China's got one now too. Yeah, it's gonna be controlled by the Chinese central bank.
Yeah, nothing's gonna go wrong there.
I don't. But my point is, like, I don't know. We don't know what the future is going to be like. Things are changing so quickly. It's all liquid. Like, you don't. What is secure? What is safe? What is the world going to look like 20 years from now? It is changing so quickly, and I think, like, a lot of the excitement out there, like the fervor, like the impulse, is a reflex of a world that is going mad and doesn't realize it.
No, I mean, this past year, and it hasn't stopped. Yeah, people are like, oh, 2021 will be better. Like, I don't know, it's still kind of wonky. It's still kind of wonky. Yeah. You know, a lot of uncertainty. You know, a lot of people don't know what to expect next. You know, like, are we, now they're saying there's mutant strains. Are we have to worry about this? It's like, oh man, it's like a never ending. No, that's just one aspect.
That is the virus that is just exposing a much bigger problem. I think what the only thing pandemics have been a constant throughout human history.
Yeah.
100 years from now, if we're still around, there's going to be another pandemic. It's just the way of the world. But I think what it did is exposed how confused and uneducated people are, and how desperate they are, and how panicky we can get and under like strife. And like, here's the thing, man. A pandemic is bad, but there's a lot worse things that can happen. Like, a pandemic is bad, but it can get a lot worse. I don't think people realize that. So this is where I'm going. Shit, man, girl, it's scary. You know, I'm already like, there's a part of me that's going, fuck, man. It's just like rewatching history here. Is this? But I think gotta try to stay positive, keep hopeful, work hard, keep your head down, do your part, and try to be honest while you live your life. And it's about as much as you can do.
That's why I'm going to Tahiti. Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Hey, if it's nice over there, gets crazy over here, don't come back, okay? Save me a spot over there. I'll go join you. But it's man, I think we're good for the next 2 more years at least. And then we go, I don't know, man. It's just like this country's gonna explode any minute now. Excuse me. But Dave, I think that's our hour.
Yes, sir, it is.
And I know you got an appointment. This time it's Dave cutting it early, not me.
Yeah, on me.
But it was fun, man. We will talk about strength and conditioning next time. Didn't even touch on it. All right. Love you guys. Thank you. Peace. Ciao.